The tires of the black Rolls-Royce Phantom screeched against the asphalt, leaving a thick mark of burnt rubber on the road. The sound tore through the quiet morning air like a scream. "Are you mad?" The driver, a burly man named Sunday, shouted through the window. "Do you want to die?" But the figure in the dust did not move. It was a girl. She was kneeling right in front of the massive luxury car, her head bowed low. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't running. She was just waiting. Inside the car, Prince Eze Daniel looked up from his phone. His heart skipped a beat. He had seen many things in his life, gold, diamonds, power, but he had never seen anyone brave enough to stand in the way of the royal convoy. "Run her over if she doesn't move," the head of security barked through the radio. "Stop," Eze ordered, his voice cold and sharp. He opened the car door. The air conditioning rushed out, and the heat rushed in. For the first time in years, the prince stepped into the red dust. He didn't know it yet, but the girl in the rags was about to bring the whole kingdom crashing down. "I'm so grateful you're here with me, my beautiful story family. If today's story has already pulled you in, show some love by clicking subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love knowing where my family is. Tomorrow brings another emotional journey you absolutely cannot miss, so make sure you're subscribed and ready." The sun rose early over the kingdom of Owerri. It was a big, burning orange ball that promised a very hot day. The heat in Nigeria is not like the heat in other places. It is heavy. It sits on your shoulders like a wet blanket. By 8 in the morning, the red dust on the roads was already dry and swirling in the air. Inside the royal palace, however, it was cool. The palace was the biggest building in the whole state. It was painted a bright, clean white that hurt your eyes if you looked at it too long in the sun. A high fence surrounded the compound with sharp metal spikes on top to keep out thieves and poor people. In his large bedroom, Prince Eze Daniel woke up. He did not wake up with a smile. He woke up with a frown. He pushed his expensive duvet cover off his legs and sat up. The air conditioner was humming loudly, blowing cold air onto his face. Eze shivered, but he did not turn it off. He liked the cold. It reminded him that he was rich. Only rich people could afford to run a generator all night to keep the AC on. Eze walked to his mirror. He was a handsome man, 32 years old, with broad shoulders and a well-trimmed beard. But his eyes were restless. They moved around quickly as if looking for something he had lost. "Another day," Eze whispered to his reflection. "Another day of being just a prince." He hated the word prince. To him, it meant second place. It meant waiting. It meant he had to ask his father for permission to travel to Lagos or London. Eze felt like a big lion trapped in a small cage. He took a shower with hot water and scented soap. He dressed in a crisp white shirt made of expensive lace material. He put on his diamond wristwatch. It was heavy and shone in the light. He looked like a king, but he knew he wasn't one yet. Eze walked downstairs to the dining room. The table was long enough to seat 20 people, but only one other person was there. King Solomon sat at the head of the table. King Solomon was an old man now. His hair was white like cotton wool. His face had many lines like a map of all the years he had ruled the kingdom. "Good morning, father," Eze said. He pulled out a chair and sat down. The king looked up. His eyes were hard. "You are late, Eze. The delegates from Abuja will be here in 1 hour. You must look perfect." "I am always perfect, father," Eze said, his voice getting tight. "I wear the clothes. I smile at the cameras. I cut the ribbons." "It is not enough," the king said calmly, slicing a piece of yam. "A prince must not just look the part, he must marry the part. Lady Clara is coming today." Eze slammed his hand on the table. The silver cutlery rattled. The servant, standing by the wall, jumped. They looked at the floor, afraid to breathe. "I do not love Lady Clara," Eze said, lowering his voice but keeping the anger. "She loves the crown, not the man. Her heart is cold, father." "Love is for poor people," King Solomon said, wiping his mouth. "Kings marry for power. You have the fire, Eze, but you lack the wisdom to cool it down. I have waited 30 years for you to grow up." Eze stood up. He pushed his chair back. It made a loud scratching noise on the tiled floor. "I am going out," Eze said. "Where are you going?" the king asked. "Does it matter?" Eze snapped. "I am just the prince. I have nothing important to do." He stormed out of the dining room. He walked past the beautiful paintings on the wall and the sculptures of leopards. He walked out the front door to where his big black Rolls-Royce was parked. His driver, Sunday, jumped up from a bench. "Good morning, sir. Ready to go, sir?" "Just drive, Sunday," Eze said, climbing into the back seat. "Drive to the gate. I need to see the world outside these walls." Sunday started the engine. It roared like a beast. He slammed the door and sped toward the palace gates. The guards scrambled to open the heavy iron gates before the car arrived. As the gates swung open, Eze looked through the tinted glass. The red dust flew up, coating the roadside stalls where women sold roasted corn and pure water. But then, he saw something else. He saw a girl, and for some reason, Sunday slammed on the brakes. Outside the car, the silence was heavy. The air was thick with the smell of exhaust fumes and heated tar. The red dust, disturbed by the sudden braking, floated around the car like a dry fog. Blessing Ojo knelt on the hot asphalt. She did not look up. Her knees were burning, but the pain in her heart was hotter. She was 20 years old, but she looked older. Poverty steals your youth. It takes the smoothness from your skin and the light from your eyes. She wore a dress that had once been floral, but was now just a stain of brown and gray. Her hair was covered by a faded scarf. In her trembling hands she held two things, a small, crumpled photograph and a plastic cup that contained only 3 coins. "Get up!" The head guard, a man with a scar on his cheek named Titus, shouted. He marched toward her, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel. "Are you deaf? Do you want to die under the tires of the prince?" "Please, sir," Blessing whispered. Her voice was cracked like dry earth waiting for rain. "I need to see the king. Just one moment, please." Titus laughed. It was a cruel, barking sound. "The king? Look at you. You look like a heap of trash. The king does not speak to trash. Get out before I use my whip." Blessing did not move. She couldn't. Desperation had planted her feet like roots. Her mother was lying on a mat in a shanty in the city, coughing blood. The hospital had asked for 50,000 naira. Blessing did not even have 50 naira. This was her last hope. She raised the photograph. "My father," she started to say. "He knew the king." "Shut up," Titus roared. He raised his hand to strike her. Inside the cool, tinted world of the Rolls-Royce, Prince Eze watched. He saw the guard's hand go up. He saw the girl flinch, curling into a small ball to protect herself. Something inside Eze snapped. It was the lion breaking the cage. "Open the door," said. Sunday, the driver, looked in the rear-view mirror, his eyes wide with fear. "Sir, it is not safe. She could be an assassin, or a witch." "I said, open the door," Eze shouted. Sunday unlocked the doors. Eze pushed the heavy door open. The heat hit him instantly. It was aggressive. It smelled of sweat and desperation. He stepped out. His polished Italian leather shoes sank slightly into the red dust. The guards froze. Titus stopped his hand in midair. His mouth fell open. The prince never stepped out. The prince was a ghost behind glass. "Your Highness," Titus stammered, lowering his hand. "Go back inside. This creature is dangerous. We will handle it." As he ignored him, he walked toward the girl. The silence in the palace entrance was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Eze looked down at her. From this close he could smell the sickness of poverty, the scent of unwashed clothes and old sweat. But he also saw something else. He saw her hands. They were shaking, but she was still holding that picture tight, like it was a diamond. "Stand up," Eze said softly. Blessing slowly lifted her head. She squinted against the sun. She saw a man who looked like he was made of gold. His white lace shirt was blinding. His beard was perfectly groomed. He looked like a god from a storybook. "I said, stand up," Eze repeated, but his voice was not angry. It was curious. Blessing scrambled to her feet. She wiped her dusty hands on her dress, trying to make herself clean. But it was impossible. She looked down at her bare feet, ashamed. "Look at me," Eze commanded. Blessing forced herself to look up. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, the world shifted. Eze saw eyes that were not begging for money but for dignity. They were brown and deep, filled with a sorrow so old it made his own boredom feel foolish. "What is your name?" Eze asked. "Blessing, sir," she whispered. "Blessing Ojo." "And why, Blessing Ojo? Do you want to die at my gate today?" "I do not want to die, my prince," she said, her voice finding a sudden strength. "I want to save a life. But if I have to die to be heard, then I will die." Eze stared at her. The women he knew, Lady Clara, the daughters of senators, they spoke of shopping in Dubai and parties in Abuja. They giggled. They flattered. This girl spoke of death and life as if they were neighbors she greeted every morning. Titus stepped forward nervously. "My prince, let us throw her out. She is delaying your meeting." Eze turned to Titus. His eyes were cold steel. "If you touch her, Titus, you will lose that hand." Titus stepped back, terrified. Eze turned back to Blessing. He extended his hand, his manicured, soft hand, toward her dirty, calloused one. "Come," Eze said. "The car has AC. You look like you need to cool down." Blessing stared at his hand. She looked at the open door of the Rolls-Royce. She looked at the angry guards. Then she looked back at the prince. She reached out and took his hand. It was warm. "Get in," Eze said. And just like that, the beggar girl from the red dust climbed into the chariot of the prince. The heavy door of the Rolls-Royce closed with a soft thud, shutting out the noise of the world. Inside, the silence was instant. The car smelled of lavender air freshener and new leather. It was a smell that Blessing had never smelled before, the smell of money. Blessing sat on the edge of the creamy white seat. She held her breath. She was terrified that the red dust on her skin would stain the leather. She tried to make herself small, clutching her plastic cup and the photograph to her chest. Sunday, the driver, glanced at them through the rear-view mirror. He shook his head. He had driven governors, senators, and oil tycoons in this car. He had never driven a girl who had no shoes. "Relax," as he said. He saw how tense she was. He pressed a button on the armrest. A small compartment slid open smoothly to reveal a bottle of cold water. "Drink. It is just water." Blessing took the bottle with trembling hands. She unscrewed the cap and drank. The water was cold and sharp. It felt like life rushing back into her body. She drank until the bottle was empty. Then she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "You said you wanted to save a life," Eze said, turning slightly to face her. His eyes were dark and serious. "Who is dying, Blessing?" "My mother," Blessing said. Her voice cracked. "She has the coughing sickness. It is bad, my prince. She coughs blood now. The hospital in the city. They asked for 50,000 naira deposit. When I told them I didn't have it, they threw us out." Eze felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. 50,000 naira. He had spent that amount on a bottle of champagne just last night. He had poured it into a glass and not even finished it. And the picture? Eze pointed to the crumpled photo she was gripping so tight her knuckles were white. "Why did you think that would help?" Blessing smoothed the photograph on her knee. It was old, black and white, and creased down the middle. It showed a young soldier in a beret standing next to a much younger King Solomon. The soldier was smiling, his chest puffed out with pride. "This is my father," Blessing said softly. "Sergeant Ojo. He was in the king's guard." Eze leaned closer. He recognized the king in the photo, but he didn't know the soldier. "He died during the riots of '98, Blessing continued, staring at the face of the father she barely remembered. "My mother told me the story 1,000 times. He took a bullet that was meant for the king. Before he died, the king promised that his family would never suffer. He gave my mother this picture." Eze sat back. The air conditioner hummed. He knew the story of the riots. His father often spoke of the brave heroes who saved the monarchy, but King Solomon had always said that those families were taken care of, that they were living in luxury abroad. "If your father saved the king," Eze said slowly, "why are you begging in the dust?" "Because the king's men stopped coming," Blessing said. "After the funeral, a man came, a man with a scar near his eye. He gave us one envelope of money and told us to leave the city. He said if we came back to the palace, we would disappear." Eze's jaw tightened. A man with a scar. That sounded like the old chief of security. Someone had stolen this girl's life. Someone had turned a hero's daughter into a beggar. "We are here," Sunday announced from the front. The car slowed down. They had arrived at the main palace entrance. The car stopped in front of the main palace doors. These were not just doors, they were giant slabs of mahogany carved with lions and eagles. "Come," Eze said. Sunday opened the door. The heat rushed in again, but this time Eze didn't mind. He stepped out. He waited. Blessing hesitated. She looked at the grand stairs, then at her dirty feet. "I cannot go in there," she whispered. "Look at me." "You are entering as my guest," Eze said firmly. He reached in and took her hand again. "And in this house, my word is law." Blessing stepped out. Her knees were shaking. They began to walk up the marble stairs. Suddenly, the heavy mahogany doors flew open. Lady Clara stepped out. She was stunning. She wore a red dress that hugged her body and cost more than a house in the village. Her hair was a cascading weave of expensive Brazilian curls. She was smiling, ready to greet her prince. "Eze," she called out, her voice dripping with honey. "You are back early. I was just telling your father." She stopped. Her smile froze. Then it shattered. She saw the hand holding the prince's hand, a hand covered in grime. Her eyes traveled up to the ragged dress, the faded headscarf, and the dusty face of Blessing Ojo. Clara's nose wrinkled as if she had smelled a dead rat. She took a step back. "Eze?" Clara asked, her voice high and sharp. "What is that?" She pointed a manicured finger at Blessing. Blessing shrank back, trying to hide behind the prince. She knew women like Lady Clara. They were the ones who rolled up their car windows when she approached in traffic. "This is Blessing," Eze said calmly. He did not let go of Blessing's hand. "Blessing?" Clara laughed. It was a cruel, barking sound. "She looks like a curse. Why is she here? Did we run out of cleaners? Even the cleaners have shoes, Eze." "She is not a cleaner," Eze said. His voice dropped an octave, becoming dangerous. "She is a guest." "A guest?" Clara shrieked. "In the main palace? Are you mad? Look at the floor. She is leaving mud on the imported Italian marble. Security." Two guards at the door stepped forward hesitantly. "Don't move," Eze commanded the guards. They froze. Eze turned to Clara. He stepped closer to her, shielding Blessing with his body. "Clara," Eze said, "you worry about the mud on the floor. I worry about the mud in your heart. This girl is here because I invited her, and she will stay until I say she leaves." Clara's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She was not used to being spoken to like this. She was the daughter of a senator. She was the future queen. "Your father will hear of this," Clara hissed, her eyes narrowing into slits. "He is meeting with the delegates in the library. Wait until he sees you holding hands with a street rat." "Let him see," Eze said. "Maybe it is time he saw something real." He turned to the headmaid, who was watching from the doorway with wide eyes. "Mama and Nkechi," Eze called out. "Yes, my prince?" The large woman bustled forward. "Take Blessing to the blue guest room. Prepare a bath, hot water with rose petals, and find her clothes. Burn these rags." "The blue room," Clara gasped. "That is for diplomats." "She is the daughter of a hero," Eze said, looking at the crumpled photo in Blessing's hand. "That ranks higher than a diplomat." He looked at Blessing. "Go with her. Do not be afraid. I will speak to my father." Blessing looked at the prince. For the first time in years, she felt tears prick her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. She nodded and followed Mama Nkechi inside. Clara stood on the steps, her chest heaving with rage. She pulled out her phone. "Hello, Daddy," she whispered into the phone, watching Eze walk away. "We have a problem. The prince has brought home a stray dog. We need to put it down." Inside the blue guest room, the air smelled of lavender and expensive soap. It was a stark difference from the smell of exhaust fumes and rotting trash that Blessing was used to. Mama Nkechi, the head maid, was a large woman with a kind face and strong arms. She filled the bathtub with hot water. Steam rose up, fogging the large mirrors. "Get in, my child," Mama Nkechi said gently. "Wash away the dust. The dust of the road does not belong on the skin of a heavy beauty." Blessing stepped into the water. It was hot, almost scalding, but it felt like heaven. As she scrubbed her skin with the sponge, the water turned brown. It was as if she was washing away not just the dirt, but the years of suffering. She scrubbed away the insults of the guards. She scrubbed away the cold nights on the street. When she finally stepped out, Mama Nkechi was waiting with a thick, fluffy towel. "Now," Mama Nkechi said, opening a large wardrobe. "The prince said we should find you something to wear. Lady Clara left some clothes here when she stayed last Christmas. She will be angry if you wear them, which is exactly why you must wear them." Mama Nkechi pulled out a dress. It was made of deep blue silk that shimmered like water in moonlight. Blessing put it on. It fit perfectly. She sat at the dressing table while Mama Nkechi combed out her matted hair and applied oil to her dry skin. "Look," Mama Nkechi whispered, turning Blessing toward the mirror. Blessing gasped. The girl staring back was not a beggar. She was stunning. Her skin, now clean and oiled, glowed like polished mahogany. Her high cheekbones, which had been hidden by gauntness and dirt, gave her the look of a model. Her eyes were large and bright. "Is that me?" Blessing whispered. "That is you," Mama Nkechi smiled. "The diamond was always there. It was just covered in mud." Downstairs in the private sitting room, Prince Eze was pacing. He had dismissed his staff. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, but he didn't drink it. He was nervous. Why was he nervous? He had met Miss World. He had met daughters of presidents. The door opened. Eze turned around. His glass almost slipped from his hand. Blessing stood in the doorway. The blue silk dress hugged her slender frame. She walked into the room, not with the shuffle of a beggar, but with the grace of a woman who knows her worth. "Blessing?" Eze asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It is me, my prince," she said. She curtsied, a clumsy but sincere movement. Eze walked toward her. You look—" He couldn't find the word. "You look like you belong here." "Clothes do not change who I am, sir," Blessing said softly. "I am still the girl who needs 50,000 naira for her mother." "You speak well," Eze noted, gesturing for her to sit on the velvet sofa. "Your English is polished, not like the street pigeon." "I was a student," Blessing said, looking down at her hands. "University of Lagos. I was studying law. I wanted to fight for people who had no voice, but when my father died and the money stopped, books do not pay for chemotherapy. So I dropped the pen and picked up the begging bowl." Eze felt a pang of guilt. He had spent his years at Oxford University partying and skipping classes, complaining about the burden of being a prince. This girl had fought for every inch of her education. "You will finish that degree," Eze said suddenly. Blessing looked up, shocked. "Sir?" "I said you will finish," Eze said firmly. "But first we must save your mother. I've already sent Sunday to the hospital with a blank check. Your mother is being moved to the private ward as we speak." Blessing covered her mouth with her hand. Tears spilled over, ruining the perfection of her face, but Eze thought she looked even more beautiful. She fell to her knees. "Stand up," Eze said, pulling her up. "No kneeling. Not anymore." He looked into her eyes. The air between them felt charged, like the sky before a thunderstorm. He leaned in closer. He could smell the rose soap on her skin. "Eze!" A voice boomed from the hallway. They jumped apart. It was King Solomon, and standing behind him, with a smirk that looked like a knife wound, was Lady Clara. Quick pause. If you're invested in this story, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'd hate for you to lose this channel. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's continue this journey together. An hour earlier, Lady Clara had been in her suite, destroying the room. She picked up a bottle of expensive French perfume and threw it at the wall. Crash! The smell of roses filled the room, but it couldn't cover the smell of her fear. He looked at her, Clara hissed to herself, pacing back and forth. He looked at that filth like she was a goddess. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number. "Chief Bassi, come to my room, now." Chief Bassi was the new head of security. He was a man with a thick neck and eyes that were too close together. He was greedy. Clara knew he was greedy because she had been paying him to spy on Eze for months. When Bassi arrived, Clara didn't offer him a seat. "The girl," Clara said, her voice trembling with rage. "The one the prince brought in. She must go." "The prince gave strict orders," Bassi grunted. "He said she is a guest. If I touch her, he will cut off my hand." "You don't have to touch her," Clara smiled, a cold, reptilian smile. "You just have to find something on her." She walked to her jewelry box. She pulled out a gold wristwatch encrusted with diamonds. It was a gift from the king for her last birthday. "This watch went missing this morning," Clara said, holding it up. "I suspect the beggar girl stole it." Bassi's eyes lit up. He understood the game. "And where would this stolen watch be found?" "In her bag," Clara said, dropping the watch into Bassi's rough hand. "The dirty bag she came with. The maids put it in the hallway closet. Go, plant it deep, and then—" "And then?" "And then I will speak to the king," Clara said. "Solomon is old. He is paranoid. He fears enemies are everywhere. I will tell him the girl is not a beggar. I will tell him she is a spy." Bassi nodded and slipped out of the room. Clara fixed her hair. She applied fresh lipstick, a shade of red that looked like fresh blood. She walked to the king's study. King Solomon was reading a file. He looked up when Clara entered. "My dear," the king said, "you look upset." "I am worried, father," Clara said, using the affectionate title. She sat on the edge of his desk. "It is easy. He is so innocent." "What has he done now?" "He brought a girl into the palace, a stranger from the road." Clara lowered her voice to a whisper. "He thinks she is just a poor beggar. But, father, have you looked at her? She is too young, too pretty, and she asks too many questions." The king frowned. "Questions?" "My maid heard her asking about the security schedules." Clara lied smoothly. "She asked when you sleep. She asked about the layout of the bedrooms." The king slammed the file shut. "What?" "I think she was sent," Clara said, planting the seed of poison. "I think the opposition sent her to seduce Eze and get close to you. They know Eze has a soft heart. They are using him to get to the crown." King Solomon stood up. His face was dark. He remembered the riots. He remembered the assassins. He trusted no one. "Where is she?" the king demanded. "She is with Eze in the private sitting room," Clara said, "right now." The king marched out of the study. Clara followed him, hiding her smile. They reached the sitting room just in time to see Eze standing very close to Blessing. "Eze!" King Solomon boomed. Eze stepped back, shielding Blessing instinctively. "Father, this is—" "I know who she is," the king shouted. He pointed a shaking finger at Blessing. "Guard, seize her." Chief Bassi and 2 other guards rushed into the room. They grabbed Blessing by the arms. "What is the meaning of this?" Eze shouted, stepping forward. "Let her go." "Stay back, Eze," the king warned. "You are blind. You bring a viper into your bed and call it a pet." "She is not a viper," Eze yelled. "We shall see," Lady Clara said, stepping forward. "Chief Bassi, search her belongings. If she is an innocent beggar, she has nothing to hide. But I believe my diamond watch is missing." Blessing's eyes went wide. She looked at Eze. "I didn't take anything, I swear." Bassie produced Blessing's old dirty bag from behind his back. He dumped the contents onto the Persian rug. Out fell the plastic cup. Out fell the crumpled photo. And out fell the gold diamond watch. It clattered loudly on the floor. The room went silent. "A thief!" King Solomon spat. "And a spy!" "No!" Blessing screamed. "I've never seen that watch. They put it there." "Take her away," the king ordered. "Lock her in the dungeon. Tomorrow we will hand her over to the police." "Father, no!" Eze grabbed the king's arm. "If you speak one more word," the king said, looking at his son with disappointment, "I will strip you of your title. You are thinking with your heart, not your head." The guards dragged Blessing away. She didn't struggle. She just looked at Eze. Her eyes were filled with betrayal. She thought he was different. She thought he was safe. As she was dragged out, one of the guards kicked the pile of her belongings. The crumpled photo of her father slid across the floor and stopped right at King Solomon's feet. The king looked down. He saw the face in the photo. He froze. "Wait," the king whispered, but the heavy doors had already slammed shut. King Solomon stood in the hallway, frozen like a statue. The guards had dragged Blessing away, her screams fading down the corridor. Eze was shouting, fighting with the security men who blocked his path. But the king heard nothing. He only saw the photo in his hand. It was black and white, creased and stained with red dust, but the face was unmistakable. It was Sergeant Ojo, the man who had pushed Solomon to the ground 20 years ago and taken a bullet in the chest, the man whose blood had stained the king's own white robes. "Sergeant Ojo," the king whispered. His hands, usually steady with the weight of power, were trembling. "Father!" Eze broke free from the guards and ran to the king. "Listen to me. She is innocent. Clara is lying." The king looked up slowly. His eyes were not angry anymore. They were haunted. "Eze," the king said, his voice raspy. "This girl, Blessing, did she tell you about her father?" "Yes," Eze shouted, desperate. "He was a soldier. She said he saved your life. She said you promised to help them, but someone chased them away. Someone stole their land and left them to rot in the slums." The king felt a cold dread wash over him. He remembered the promise. He remembered sending money, lots of money, through his trusted chief of staff at the time, a man named Senator Williams. Senator Williams, Lady Clara's father. The pieces of the puzzle clicked together with a sickening sound. The king looked at the closed door of the dungeon, then at the confident smirk on Lady Clara's face down the hall. "Bassie!" the king roared. Chief Bassie ran forward, sweating. "Yes, Your Majesty?" "Bring the girl to the throne room," the king commanded, "and bring Lady Clara. Bring everyone. We are going to have a trial." "A trial, sir?" Bassie looked nervous. "But she is just a beggar. We can just hand her to the police." "Do as I say," the king shouted, his voice shaking the crystal chandelier above them. "And Bassie, if one hair on her head is harmed, you will wish you were never born." Down in the palace dungeon it was cold. The air smelled of damp stone and old fear. Blessing sat on the hard floor. She wasn't crying anymore. She was too tired to cry. She held her knees to her chest. "I tried," she whispered to the darkness. "Mama, I tried." She heard heavy footsteps. The door clanged open. Chief Bassie stood there. He wasn't sneering anymore. He looked pale. "Get up," he grunted. "The king wants you." Blessing stood up. She smoothed her blue silk dress, which was now wrinkled. She lifted her chin. She would not let them see her broken. She walked out of the cell, her head high. She was a daughter of Ojo. She would face the lion one last time. The throne room was magnificent. Gold pillars reached up to a ceiling painted with angels. But the atmosphere in the room was as heavy as lead. King Solomon sat on his lion-skin throne. Eze stood to his right, his fists clenched, looking ready to fight the whole army. Lady Clara stood to the left, looking bored, checking her nails. Blessing was led to the center of the room. She stood alone on the red carpet, looking small against the grandeur of the palace. "The accused is present," Chief Bassie announced. Lady Clara stepped forward. "Father," she said smoothly, "why are we wasting time? The thief was caught red-handed. The watch was in her bag. Send her to prison so we can have dinner." "Silence," King Solomon said. His voice was low, but it carried a dangerous weight. He stood up. He walked down the steps of the throne. He did not walk toward Blessing. He walked toward Clara. "You say she stole your watch," the king said. "Yes," Clara nodded. "My diamond watch, a gift from you." "And where did you lose this watch?" I left it on my vanity," Clara lied. "She must have sneaked in and taken it." The king reached into his pocket, but he didn't pull out the watch. He pulled out the crumpled photograph. He held it up for Clara to see. "Do you know who this is?" the king asked. Clara squinted. "Some dirty soldier. No. Why would I know him?" "This is Sergeant Ojo," the king said. "The man who saved my life. The man whose family I entrusted to your father, Senator Williams, to protect." Clara's face went pale. The boredom vanished instantly. 20 years ago," the king continued, his voice rising, "I gave your father 10 million naira to buy a house for this man's widow. I gave him papers for land in the city center. I thought the debt was paid." He turned to Blessing. "But you ended up begging in the dust. Why?" Blessing spoke, her voice ringing clear in the silent room. "A man came, Your Majesty. He worked for Senator Williams. He told us the king wanted us gone. He took the papers. He burned our house. He said if we ever spoke your name, we would be killed." The king turned back to Clara. His eyes were burning with a fire that terrified everyone in the room. "Your father built his estate on their land," the king realized aloud. "He stole the money, and today, you tried to finish the job. You tried to frame the daughter of a hero to hide your family's crime." "No," Clara shrieked. "She is lying. She is a beggar. Who will you believe? Me, the future queen, or this rat?" "I believe the eyes," the king said softly. "She has her father's eyes. Honest eyes." He turned to Chief Bassi. "Bassi, look at me. Did she steal the watch?" Bassi looked at the furious king, then at the terrified Clara. He was a greedy man, but he was not stupid. He fell to his knees. "It was Lady Clara," Bassi cried out, pointing at her. "She gave it to me. She told me to plant it in the bag. She said the girl was a spy." "Traitor!" Clara screamed, lunging at Bassi. "Guards!" King Solomon roared. 4 royal guards rushed forward. They grabbed Lady Clara. She kicked and screamed, her expensive dress tearing. "Get off me! I am the daughter of a senator." "You are a disgrace," the king spat. "Arrest her, and arrest Bassi, and send the police to Senator Williams' house. Tell them the king demands his money back, with interest." As they dragged Clara away, screaming curses, the room fell silent again. Eze ran down the steps. He didn't care about protocol. He grabbed Blessing and pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against him, sobbing into his white lace shirt. "It's over," Eze whispered into her hair. "It's over." King Solomon wiped a tear from his own eye. He walked over to them. He placed a hand on Blessing's shoulder. "I am sorry," the king said humbly. "I was blind. But today you have opened my eyes. You are not a beggar, my child. You are family." Time, like the seasons, has a way of healing the land. Just as the rainy season washes away the dust of the harmattan, the months that followed washed away the pain in the palace. It had been 6 months since the day of the trial. 6 months since Lady Clara was escorted out in handcuffs and the beggar girl was given a room fit for a queen. The palace looked different now. The sharp metal spikes on the fence had been removed. The gates were often open, allowing people to come in with their grievances or just to greet the king. The air conditioners still hummed, but the windows were often open to let in the natural breeze and the sounds of the village. Today was a Saturday. The sun rose hot and bright, just like it had on the day the story began, but this time there was no anger in the palace, only anticipation. It was the wedding day. Prince Eze stood in his room. He was dressed in the full regalia of a groom, a heavy robe of embroidered white velvet, rows of coral beads around his neck and wrists, and a staff of office made of ivory. He looked in the mirror. He saw the face of a man who was ready. He was no longer the bored boy shivering in the AC. He was a man who had found his fire. "Are you ready, my prince?" Sunday, the driver, asked. Sunday was now the head of transport. He wore a crisp new uniform. "I am ready, Sunday," Eze smiled. "Is she here?" "She is waiting." Eze walked out to the main courtyard. It was packed. Thousands of people. The colors were blinding. Yellows, greens, reds. But unlike the royal weddings of the past, the guests were not just senators and oil tycoons. Sitting in the front row, on plush velvet chairs, were the market women. There were the mechanics. There were the hawkers who sold pure water at the gate, and sitting right next to King Solomon was Blessing's mother. She looked healthy now, her coughing sickness cured by the best doctors in Lagos. She wore a lace wrapper that shone in the sun. The crowd roared as Eze stepped out. "Igwe! Igwe!" Then the drums changed rhythm. A hush fell over the crowd. Blessing walked out. She was breathtaking. She wore a dress of gold cloth that shimmered like the sun. Her hair was adorned with coral beads. She didn't look down at her feet anymore. She looked straight ahead, her eyes shining with tears of joy. She walked up the aisle. King Solomon stood up and bowed to her, a king bowing to the daughter of a sergeant. When she reached Eze, he took her hands. They were soft now, but he could still feel the strength in them. "You saved me," as he whispered so only she could hear. "I was drowning in this palace and you saved me." "And you saved me from the dust," Blessing whispered back. "No," as he smiled, looking down at the ground. "The dust is part of us." He turned to the crowd. He raised his hand. "My people," as he shouted. His voice was amplified by the microphone, booming across the square. "I stand here today, not just as a prince, but as a lucky man. I found a diamond in the road." He looked at the children sitting near the front. "I promise to build schools for you," he said, "so you do not have to beg." He looked at the sick and the elderly. "I promise to build hospitals," he said, "so no mother has to die because she lacks 50,000 naira." The cheers erupted again, louder than before. The drummers began to beat a fast, high-life rhythm. Eze pulled Blessing close. They began to dance. They danced with the king. They danced with the market women. And as their feet stamped on the ground, a small cloud of red dust rose up around their ankles. It swirled and sparkled in the sunlight. It didn't look dirty anymore. It looked like gold dust dancing in the sun. The prince of the palace had married the daughter of the road. The walls were broken, and the kingdom of Owerri would never be the same again. You made it to the end, and I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you loved this story, the next one is going to blow your mind. I'm talking more twists, more emotion, more of everything that keeps you hooked. Click on that image on your screen right now and jump straight into the next tale. You're going to love it.